right, my Sharia on the, is that May 1st? Is that what that says up there?
That's right. Sir. It's May 1st.
It's May 1st already?
Yes,
now, that's Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Tom Trento, your host, Enemies of the State. And you know every Friday is Jumpin' Juma Freaky Friday. You just saw my Sharia issue, and that's the problem facing mankind today, Sharia Islamic law. We're going to get into a lot of that today on this Jumpin' Juma Freaky Friday, but it's also, oh, there it is. I kill you! Jumpin' Juma Freaky Friday. We have people wanting to kill people all over the world, and we're going to get into some of that also. Tremendous show. We got a little bit of Jumpin' Juma Freaky Friday stuff to touch on. Then it's two special guests today. First up, we're going to have a good friend of ours, William Murray, Religious Freedom Coalition. Bill Murray is a fascinating guy. I think he's been on our show before, but not in a while. We're going to bring him back often. Got some very relevant, very immediate information for all patriots, all Western civilized individuals. He's going to talk about problems within our own government here related to the jihad, problems in the Middle East related to the poor Christians being slaughtered on a regular basis. Bill Murray up in a little bit. Then we have later in the show our dear friend Barry Shaw out of Israel. A timely report on the Syrian border, what's going on the northern Hezbollah border, and some other insight. And Barry's just written another book, so we'll bring him up. But hey guys, why are we working on Labor Day, Monday, May Day? What are we doing?
Yeah, what's up with that?
I don't know. We should be out in the streets.
Protesting.
Burning down something.
Rioting.
We should be burning something, Come on.
We should be with the Euro trash out there, the anarchists and socialists and Marxists. Well, they're here too in the United States. They're in Baltimore. They're all over the place. Today is May Day, recognition of Marxism and communism. And look, Marxism was the birther of a whole bunch of isms under it, and we deal with those quite a bit on this show. But one of the key events happened in 1886, May 4th, I believe it was. Let me double check the exact time to when this event took place. May 4th, 1886. Haymaker Square in Chicago, a bunch of labor people were protesting, turned really, really nasty. 7 or 8 were killed. And historically, in recognition of the labor movement in America, and I come out of a labor movement family, blue-collar union family, Teamster family. I'm familiar with the labor unions. They were different 30, 40 years ago than they are today. The labor unions are having their day. This is their day. Protests all over the world in support of socialism, Marxism against capitalism. Great intellectual battle, even though communism... Are there any communist countries anymore?
Cuba, man.
Cuba. But we're going to fix Cuba. We're going to fix Cuba because we have a president who wants to fix Cuba because he said, I don't want to get involved with stuff that happened before I was born. That's a real man of history. President Obama, right here. He doesn't want to get involved with stuff that happened before he was born, but he's thoroughly and completely and comprehensively involved in enabling who used to be the Muslim Brotherhood. Now he seems to be shifting allegiances over to the Shia side of the ledger, to the Iranians. Next week, some key shows on this Iranian nonsensical negotiation. We got great stuff. Let me tell you. 1 hour a day, actually about 56 minutes a day, commercial free. We function on your donations. If you're so kind as to help us with that, we appreciate it. Commercial free, hardcore, national security, U.S. constitutional, protect Israel, fight Islamic jihad information with a little bit of our spin, a little bit of our analysis. And where can you hear and listen to us? WSBR radio and 740 AM out of Boca Raton. You can pick that up. You don't have to live in Miami to West Palm only to hear us. You can go on iHeartRadio, put in WSBR 740 AM Boca, put it on your iPhone, listen everywhere you go, wherever there's a cell phone signal. Or you can go to WHFS 1010 in Tampa Bay. We're broadcast out of there. Those are the two commercial radio stations were on. But then on theunitedwest.org, you can pick up the whole show, 4 o'clock every day, 11 minutes after the hour. A couple of quick points before we get to Bill Murray. On our Jumpin' Juma Freaky Friday, we have the fact that CAIR, Council on American Islamic Relations, a terrorist organization by the dictates of the UAE, United Arab Emirates, they have said, you know what, we know you guys fairly well. You're going on the list with Boko Haram, with Al-Shabaab, with Al-Qaeda, with the Islamic State. CAIR goes, no, not us. They're there as of last year. CAIR, designated terrorist organization. But they operate with impunity in the United States of America. And there's their leader on your screen right now, Nihad Awad. We expose these guys left and right, but they just came out with their annual list of
Islamophobia.
Islamophobia. Imam Abdullah, can you define Islamophobia for us, please?
Yes, that would be your infidels speaking of Islam in any negative way to stereotype us. In fact, any critical analysis at all from an infidel is viewed as Islamophobia in our eyes and is punishable by one head rolling around your ankles.
Okay, I understand that. Let me ask you this, Imam Abdullah. I am an evangelical Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. My Jewish brothers and sisters don't. We have a massive disagreement over whether Jesus is the Messiah or not. And I get into it. I just recently had a debate with a Jewish rabbi on the existence of God. About 100 people in the audience. We put it up on YouTube. I get into debates and discussions with my friends on Jesus being the Messiah. So far, none of us has cut the other person's head off, and we vehemently disagree with each other. Am I a Jewophobia because I disagree with Jewish people on Jesus as the Messiah?
No, you're just arguing your apologetics, as you call it.
How about when I disagree with some of my Christian brothers and sisters on eschatology or some theological issue, and we get into knock-down, drag-out arguments, but we don't cut each other's heads off or even get mad at each other?
Because you're a bunch of sissies.
Okay. I see. It only applies to the religion of peace that you can't criticize.
Yes, and we believe if you disrespect Allah or Muhammad, the Prophet, peace be upon him, it is certainly punishable by death.
What about that First Amendment thing going on here in the United States?
Nah.
That, first of all, Tom, we've had this discussion before. The Quran,
and we'll have it again, I'm sure.
The Quran, God's law, Allah's law, supersedes your ridiculous man-made laws.
Okay.
Allah knows best. What you talk about is man-made crap, garbage laws.
Well, we have
that along with your constitution, okay?
We have coming up very shortly a Christian, an evangelical Christian, Bill Murray. He'll be up in a couple of minutes. We're going to ask him to weigh in on the Sharia versus the Constitution and how we balance all of these issues. Another interesting item for Jumpin' Juma Freaky Friday, those Jews invented skunk juice that now is being used in the United States to spray over
they did that.
Baltimore rioters and all people in rioting situations.
That's nasty stuff, man.
Do you know what skunk juice is?
What's it made up of?
Well,
I don't know.
We'll get into it a little later if we have time in the show, but it's non-lethal. It's something you spray, you hose on people. There it is. And when it goes on them, it doesn't come off for weeks. You can't wash it off, and you smell like dead, rotting animals and human excrement. Yeah. Put those two smells together, put them in a perfume bottle, and spray them over a bunch of rioters, and it's cost-effective. And it kind of calms things down and moves people away.
Yeah.
Though I have a little bit of a problem with this. You ever see those folks that are rioting? Some of them, remember the Occupy people? And all
yeah. Yeah, it actually improves their smell.
Exactly. I think skunk juice, they don't go, oh, somebody's spraying perfume on us here. But the Israelis invented this for crowd control, and now American police units are indeed using it. Let's see.
I'm sure that's racist somehow.
We have an effort by CAIR once again, along with a couple of U.S. congressmen who happen to be members of the Religion of Peace, Keith Ellison from Minnesota and Andre Carson from Indiana. They are working hard to ban Geert Wilders, parliamentarian from Holland, from coming into the United States and speaking in the U.S. Congress.
They're letting that man in here again?
Yeah, he made it in, Mr. Wilders. He spoke to key groups at the United States Congress. I believe Louis Gohmert, the representative out of Texas, featured him and hosted him at a unique event on Capitol Hill. I think Frank Gaffney also did at one point. So the effort to ban Geert Wilders didn't occur. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, where's Geert Wilders going to be this Sunday? Anybody know?
He's going to be down in Texas.
He's going to be in Garland, Texas, at an event hosted by Pamela Geller. And it would be a misconception and an improper use of the English language. So this doesn't stop many people on the other side from getting mad and criticizing her and him. She is having a free speech event at the center there where the Muslim Brothers had their endorsement of the killing and all of that of the folks at Charlie Hebdo. She's having an event this Sunday to show Mohammed art, to show people around the world who are artists who paint Jesus Christ, they paint Mohammed, they paint Moses, they paint everybody. She's having an event there. Geert Wilders is the featured speaker. And if I'm not mistaken, it will be live streamed. We're going to be there covering it and try to bring you the story at theunitedwest.org. That'll be 6 o'clock Eastern time. 6 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah.
5 o'clock Central time, because Texas is far away from the east, if you hadn't noticed.
Right.
Back to CAIR's new list. Did the United West make their list of Islamophobes?
What do you think, Tom? What kind of question is
Good
this?
question is that, Tom?
Probably a good bet. We'll get
bet.
into more of that today or in Monday's show. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the United West, Enemies of the State, name of our show. We tried to identify people who are enemies of the Constitution, enemies of Israel, in support of the Muslim Brotherhood or Islamic Jihad, and enemies who support anything President Obama does, because he indeed is an enemy of the state ideologically. Our dear friend William Murray, Religious Freedom Coalition. Bill Murray, how you doing, sir?
Great to be with you, Tom.
Good to see you. What do you think, Bill? Is the world going crazy, or is it just us here?
Oh, I don't think it's particularly going crazy. I think that we have a situation where there is a direction from the leader of the Western world, King Salman, and President Obama, and the Western leaders are dutifully following what he wants to accomplish. And rather than being crazy, I think there's just perfect order. If you recall, in January, the President and the Vice President of the United States got on an airplane, traveled together to Saudi Arabia. Both left the country at the same time, despite all of the precautions that are supposed to be taken. They took along with them the official yelping lap dog of one side of John McCain and Nancy Pelosi and John and McCain and Biden and the president held hands and in order to go down and pay homage to King Salman. Keep in mind that President Obama doesn't bother to go to any of the swearing-in ceremonies of the President of France or the funeral of Margaret Thatcher or any of the prime ministers. You get a sense of who controls the world when somebody, all of the Western leaders, including the Prime Minister of England, all go to that individual and basically say, what do you want us to do? The Saudis are the most influential financial source in the world today. They own downtown London. They own a lot of downtown Manhattan. They own shares of a lot of the shares of major media. They're buying up Hollywood, and of course they support all of the radical Islamic agenda that you talk about. I mean, I know we're all supposed to hate Iran right now, but I would like to point out that there are churches in Iran, and the Christians are allowed to worship there, and that doesn't happen in Saudi Arabia.
No, good point. Hey, Bill, before we get into some of your tremendous articles that you've been putting out, let's give the folks a way to contact you. Some of our radio audience cycles in and out when they pull off I-95. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you started your coalition, and how people can actually get in touch with you.
Well, it is the Religious Freedom Coalition, and we're easy to find. If they put in Religious Freedom Coalition, we come up first in every search engine. Put in William J. Murray, I'll come up first in every search engine. I do a lot of writing at WND. I have been working on persecution of Christians. In fact, I helped to start the first, not helped to start, I established the first Bible publishing company in the Soviet Union under glasnost and perestroika before the Soviet Union fell. I was there the day that of the attempted coup. I was there when there was the attack on the White House. So it is I have been doing this for some time, and as communism failed, and particularly as the Soviet Union fell, I actually foresaw a lot of what was going to happen in the stands because of my experiences in the Soviet Union and my communication with a lot of the Communist Party leaders over there as it collapsed. I had one old communist hand over there tell me, he said, as the Soviet Union is no more, and the stands are no longer under our secular control, the West is going to regret the day that the Soviet Union ever collapsed when those people are let loose.
When they're let loose. I don't think many today realize that you have a unique place in history. Walk us through just very quickly, because it's a whole historical moment. But you were one of the plaintiffs in a very serious case that many people point to that changed culture in America when you were just a little kid. Tell us quickly about that and how you got to be where you're doing today.
Background that allows me to work on this. I was actually raised in an atheist and communist home. Actually, it was a communist home that was also atheist. My mother, Madeline Murray O'Hare, has most of her notoriety from being an atheist, but that was secondary. That's what the media picked up on. She was a Marxist, attempted to defect to the Soviet Union, hated capitalism. We subscribed to USSR, later changed its name to Soviet Life. I met Gus Hall. I met all of the influential communist leaders of the day. Teenager, my mother was the manager of the Communist Party bookstore. This is what caused me, after I became a Christian and perestroika and glasnost came along, for me to get involved in the Soviet Union, because I understood communism. I understood communism a lot better than many of the people that were educated in communist Russia, because many of the members of the Communist Party were only members of the Communist Party in order to get employment positions, key employment positions, not because they actually believed in it. They simply wanted a better job. The Communist Party never managed to even get up to 10% membership in the Soviet Union. I mean, that's how popular it was. But all that set aside, it gave me a very, very unique understanding of the entire utopian dream, this kind of magic thought that goes through the mind of Barack Obama. Now, it isn't out yet, but I have a new book coming out. The publisher has delayed it actually until the beginning of next year. But I have a new book out on what is really, the key to the magic thought here, which is utopianism. Barack Obama isn't really a communist, he's a utopianist. Adolf Hitler was a utopianist. Stalin was a utopianist. Pol Pot was a utopianist. The Castro brothers are utopianists. And it doesn't matter, whether it's National Socialism or communism or Nazism or whatever you want to call it. It is the concept that a handful of individuals can sit down and intellectually solve all of the problems of society. If that doesn't define Barack Obama, tell me what does.
No, that's perfect. That is perfect. And with your background, with Madeline Mary O'Hare as your mom, communist, atheist, with you guys being involved in as plaintiffs in that lawsuit that took prayer out of public schools back in the 60s, with your understanding of the socialist Marxist movement, today's May Day. Today is May 1st, Worldwide International Solidarity Day. Is there still a Marxist movement in the world? And more appropriately, is there a Marxist movement here in the United States that Americans ought to be concerned about?
I don't know about Marxism in particular. I think that the utopianists have taken a step back from that toward traditional socialist philosophy as it becomes apparent that you lose certain markers of economic engines in pure Marxism, which is why you see why the Chinese went to a mixed type of economy of combining the market engine along with some socialist underpinnings, and you have that in Europe as well, as the state ownership is given up in favor of enterprises, et cetera, et cetera. But that socialist attitude. It is still there. And we have something happening in this country now. I know you started to talk about Occupy. What happened in Baltimore, that was not racial. I think a lot of people think it is, but I'm on Capitol Hill. The analysts, some of the bulwarks of committees, some very intelligent people have looked at this. What happened in Baltimore is really the beginning of a class warfare that Barack Obama, for all his community organizing, is not going to be able to control. Under the Obama administration particularly, we have taken the divide between rich and poor too far. The middle class has been shrunk too far. They are the buffer that stops the kind of class warfare that has erupted in various places in the world at one time or another. That buffer is vanishing. And as that buffer vanishes, we're going to see more outbreaks of violence. The clashes here are class clashes in Baltimore. They're between opposing cultures, and they are not necessarily racial. All
right, Bill, you and I are evangelical Christians, which means we take very seriously the Bible, Jesus Christ, all of this stuff. And we believe Christians have a role in society. We obviously hold to a separation of mosque and state, unlike Islam, church and state, to separate that. But that doesn't mean Christians don't have a role in speaking about, critiquing, analyzing, participating, correcting culture. And in our culture, it's a republic. We elect officials, and we elect them to go represent us, where you hang out quite a bit up on the Hill. Where are the evangelicals as the salt and the light that the Bible commands us to be in America today? How can America be moving so far to the left if there's so many, 100 million serious Christians out there? How do you reconcile that situation?
They're simply absent because the pastors are absent. Tom, you've been up here, and you know what the conservative, particularly the evangelical conservative Christian congressmen and senators say, very bluntly, sometimes a little bit publicly, but most of the time they tell us. And that is, we could get change up here if congressmen and senators heard from the pastors. But they hear nothing from the pastors. The pastors are AWOL. The pastors are you can't even, there are virtually no pastors talking about the dissemination of the Christians in the Middle East. Just the mass extinction of Christians. Yeah, I mean, you can get some Catholic priests and some Orthodox priests to talk about it, but it is totally off the radar. We are so entrenched in the evangelical church, in our little bitty small groups, and our dinners, and our latte machines, and our valet parking, and so forth, and giant productions, and rock concerts, and whatever in the evangelical church, that we are not involved in Christianity in the world. We don't even view the Christians outside the United States as being a part of a church or a part of the body of Jesus Christ. And in the United States, I don't think that in the evangelical church there really is anything going on outside of the walls of the church. And then there's also the concern within the church not to offend anybody, because that quite frankly affects revenue. And this whole thing with the IRS, and we could lose our tax exemption, I believe is not reality. It's simply an excuse. That's the pastor's excuse for not talking about the issue. So I think we're in trouble in the evangelical church in the United States. But it's a cyclical trouble. You and I have been Christians for a long time, and we see these cycles go through the church. There was the name it, claim it cycle, and then there was the wifely obedience cycle, and now we're going through whatever this cycle is, and I'm sure it will pass. I don't know what it will replace it, and I don't know if what replaces it will actually start to pay attention to what's going on in our society, but I hope so.
Yeah, I think, Bill, it could be best classified as the head in the sand cycle for the Christian church. And, I graduated from a pretty prestigious seminary years back, and social action, all of that is secondary to the latte machines and building the church, building it for what, we always ask. What are you building it for? Bill, we only have you for a short time. We're going to bring you back because there's a lot to go over with you. You're a refreshing evangelical voice, and we got to figure out how to mobilize these pastors.
Absolutely. I want to go back to Saudi Arabia for just a minute.
Well, I got a couple of things. I want to do Saudi Arabia. I want to do the persecution of the Christians in the Middle East, and then your Christmas program. So let's hit all of that.
Well, one of the things that I don't think that people understand with King Salman is this guy is even more conservative and even worse. He has fired the only woman that was in the government. He has let This is
the new king of Saudi Arabia, correct?
He has lifted all travel restrictions against the hardcore Islamists. He has given the religious police even more power. They're actually starting to go into Western compounds now and harass people where they weren't before, telling them how to dress and what to do. He is much more conservative and unwielding compared to Abdullah. By the way, Lindsey Graham thinks this is a great positive step, quote unquote. But because they see him taking a leadership role in the Middle East. Quite frankly, if I were Israel, I would be frightened by this. We have armed this place to the teeth. You see what it's done in Yemen. The Israelis have done some secret agreements with the Saudis over Syria. They're going to live to regret it. That is just a biblical fact. Every time the Israelis do this, it's a problem. And I would not trust this King Salman with a BB gun, much less anything else. Much less some brand new fifth generation fighters and bombers. This is a big mistake to trust these people.
Absolutely, and we maintain here at the United West, our organization, this show, Enemies of the State, 35 minutes after on WSBR Radio out of Boca Raton, WHFS 1010, Tom Trento, your host, our dear friend Bill Murray, our guest. We're talking about a whole host of things that Bill and his Religious Freedom Coalition is involved with. You can go to Religious Freedom Coalition to find Bill, get in touch with him. Specifically, we're talking about Saudi Arabia, not to be trusted, but the geopolitical complexities of the day have us supporting the Saudis, helping them call in air power against the Houthis, who are proxies for Iran, while at the same time the United States is helping Iran fight Iran fight the bad guys in Iraq while we're negotiating with Iran to give them a bomb. Somebody figure that out. But we don't have time for that, Bill. What I do want to do is give us a sense of the slaughter of Christians in the Middle East. Will you do that, please?
Well, I bring you some bad news. The Syrian government is basically facing the same situation that the Confederacy faced in 1864. They're running out of men. The Islamists and the Turks are able to continue to put tens of thousands of radical Islamists on the ground, of Sunnis, in order to overthrow that marginally Shiite government. So I think, quite frankly, we may be in the end game, which means that literally hundreds of thousands of Christians could wind up being enslaved and slaughtered by the Sunnis that we support there. The other problem, of course, is the quote Shiites, the Shia that run that country, who aren't really. They're marginal. They are extremely secular. This is why the Sunnis and the Saudis hate them so bad. It is why the Saudis finance this. It's why when the Saudis told us to go in and plan and help them with the whole Damascus volcano operation in July of 2012, we did. But this is once the Syrian government collapses, this is viewed. The Christians in the Middle East view the government under the Assad family as being, quote, a golden era for Christians in the Middle East, the best they have had it since Islam came in with Muhammad. That is about to end. It has already ended in Iraq. It ended in Turkey. In Iran, when we under Carter helped to overthrow the Iranian government. Remember, that leaned very secular. Yep. Christians were numerous. They were allowed to have churches, allowed to have schools, just like in Syria. We have repression now with the Muslim Brotherhood in Turkey, where Erdogan is trying to turn himself into, some kind of, I don't know what. He's gone beyond president now. They put people in jail there for criticizing him. So there really isn't anywhere for the Christians to go except Lebanon. And the population of Lebanon has doubled in the last 4 years with refugees from Syria without any new construction. So I don't know where they're going to go there. We're looking at a real massacre and no place left for Christians to go.
And no voice coming out of the United States, no Christian consolidated voice. Hey, Bill, tell us about your Christmas program. It's fascinating.
Tom, we are on whatever side the Saudis are on, and the Saudis are Sunni. So we belong to them. They tell us to put our army or bomb something, we're going to go do it.
Yeah, sad situation, because supposedly we need their oil. That's a whole nother show. But Christmas for Refugees, phenomenal program. Tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about it.
Well, anybody that wants to look at this, Christmas for Refugees, .org. This is a great program. We go in and what we do is last year we did 1,000 kids in Lebanon and 1,000 in Jordan. These are Syrian and Iraqi refugee children. We do a whole program. It's 100 kids at a time. So it's manageable in churches and auditoriums. They have a place to play. We have music. We have church services. They get a really good hot meal, and then each child's family gets about $50 worth of food to take home, or a voucher at a Christian store in the case of Lebanon, in order to get about $40 to $50 worth of food to take home. And of course, it's the most needy, because there are tens of thousands. And we hope to up that to do 2,000 in Lebanon this Christmas, 2,000 in Jordan, and perhaps maybe we can go up to a bid in Iraq and do some there. But the idea is not just food. There's a spiritual sense to this. These children, Syria was not a third world country. These kids lived in nice homes. Their parents had nice jobs. They had cars to drive. They had tremendous infrastructure, 99% literacy, good clothes to wear, good Christian schools to go to. and now they're living in basements, they're living in tents, they're sleeping on mud floors. So we're trying to give them at least a few hours on one day that reminds them of when their life was normal and reminds them of their Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Hey, tremendous stuff, Bill Murray. Whatever we can do to help you out, folks, go to his websites, go to Christmas for Refugees. Please donate, help out. And you can't be overwhelmed by the size, the magnitude of the refugee problem. You have to do whatever you can. And if Bill and his team can reach 100, 200, 1,000, 2,000, that's 2,000 human beings that have been reached on a particular day, and they will be most grateful. Thank you, Bill, for everything you're doing. Got to let you go now. We want you back to go into some of this stuff much more deeply, okay?
Thank you, Tom.
You take care. Have a wonderful day, wonderful weekend. Bill Murray, everybody, dear friend, solid Christian, working very hard in the political arena to wake in the religious arena to wake up the pastors. Syria is a mess. We're going to go to Barry Shaw in a moment here. We'll get some information about Syria, but Syria is a mess. 25 million people 4 years ago, 12 million people today. Population has been not decimated 10 times, has been 50% made it. It's half of what it was, and these are refugees who have left, people who have been killed, 200,000 to 300,000 people going into other lands, just moving, all of that. Really bad. In fact, the Syrian army, when it started 4 years ago, had about 250,000 men, fighting men, trained extremely well. They're down to 125,000 fighters now. And what they have done in Syria, the Assad regime, they have restricted any man, boy, 15 years old and older from leaving the country. You cannot leave the country, and you have to get ready to fight. And they're bringing in foreign fighters. They're bringing in people from other countries and paying them to fight because Syrian men don't exist anymore. They've either left or they've been killed. And now you got a bunch of foreign fighters speaking other languages working under Syrian leaders, but Hezbollah has come in and essentially through Iran taken over the battle. And we have on-the-ground situations where there's fights between generals and they're killing each other, and there's discord within the Assad regime. And many analysts are saying this could be the end of the Assad regime. What does that mean? Well, we got an expert right now we're bringing in to help us understand the mess in Syria. Barry Shaw, welcome back to the show, sir. How are you today?
Thank you, Tom. How are you? Nice to be with you again.
Good to be with you. We regret not seeing you. I saw you in November. We weren't able to hook up on this past trip. We had a tremendous time out there. We did hook up with some of your friends. We saw Martin Sherman and others. But
sorry I missed you there, Tom.
We just had a gentleman on, William Murray, evangelical Christian, doing a lot of work in the Middle East, trying to help the Christian community there. We talked about Syria. And give us an update, a brief on the Syrian situation, particularly as it relates to Israel's national security.
Yeah, actually, Tom, I had coffee this morning with a friend of mine who's originally from Sweden. He's a tour guide, just like you were up on the border there with Syria, correct? Yep. He was there earlier this week. I don't know if when you were there, if you look towards Quneitra, and you need some, high-powered binoculars to see that. But if you look towards Quneitra, if you remember, there's an observation tower there. And when you were there, I think at that time, they still flying the Syrian flag. But he was there earlier this week, and he looked towards that observation tower with a Swedish friend of his who's with the Swedish forces of the United Nations, and the ISIS flag was flying there.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So the Islamic State has taken over Quneitra, which was a key Syrian stronghold. What does that mean?
We haven't exactly taken over Quneitra. They're there in part of Quneitra. And as you know, Tom, you were there. You heard the noises of battle going on all the time. This thing is very fluid. It changes daily, let's say. Sometimes it could be ISIS. Sometimes it could be al-Nusra or al-Qaeda. Sometimes it could be the Syrians themselves. And sometimes it could be the Syrian rebels. It's a whole mishmash over there.
What is... a lot of people here are analysts in the U.S. are starting to say, hey, If the Islamic State continues to gain ground, continues to get fighters, continues to have victories, particularly in the western corners and over along the Mediterranean, and they prevail and defeat the Assad regime, what does that mean for Israel and the United States? And maybe America needs to go prop up Assad. We hear some of this thinking here in America. What are we supposed to be doing?
The feeling here is that, I think you were covering it just before I came on air, I think Assad is weakening. You mentioned the reduction of their forces down from a 250,000 to about 125,000, okay? And I can tell you that 4 years ago, we had $30 billion in foreign exchange reserves. 4 years later, it's down to about $1 billion.
Wow.
The currency is worthless. So, you know, with the collapse of forces and the collapse of the currency, although Iran and maybe Russia tried to prop them up, they're weakening both in force and financially.
All right, now, that's a fascinating consideration, ladies and gentlemen. 46 minutes after, Tom Trento, your host, Enemies of the State. We have Barry Shaw with us. Barry, you just wrote another book. Give us the title and how people can get in touch with you.
Okay, the book is called Fighting Hamas, BDS, and Anti-Semitism. It's available on Amazon, both in Kindle and also in paperback, or on CreateSpace. I've spent just over 2 years researching this. On what I've done, I've gone to the heart of the Palestinian cause. And one of the main things that are driving not only the Palestinian cause, but a lot of those that are supporting the Palestinian cause, is sheer Jew hatred, sheer anti-Semitism. And the book takes you on a journey from the Palestinian leadership itself, going from the Hamas Charter to the Palestinian Charter, which is, if you like, the constitution of the Palestinian Authority, formerly the PLO, to the Fatah Party, which is the party of our so-called peacemaker, Mahmoud Abbas. They all reek not only of anti-Semitism, but radical Islamic causes. Hamas is the voice of Islam, the voice of Allah calling for jihad. And they keep mentioning the word jihad and Jew killing and Jew hatred and destruction of the Jewish state throughout all of these things. Now, the book traces from that central core through what's called the BDS movement, which is the boycotts, divestments, and sanctions movement that is active on the campuses, even there in the States, as well as around the world, into some of the media, into some of the politicians as well who support the boycott movement of Israel and use an altruistic reason to support the Palestinians, which gives them a legitimacy to hide their anti-Semitism behind what looks like a human rights cause. But then I strip that away piece by piece in the book. It's very detailed, it's very factual, and I'm backed up in this with a lot of notable people, some of whom you may know and have met, Tom, who back up with their version to corroborate everything that's written in the book. It's a detailed book, it's a fascinating book, but it gives those who are, let's say, not even just pro-Israel, but want to know the truth of what's here, the thing that's behind the Palestinian cause. And I think it's important to point out, it's just like exactly the same as some people in the 30s wanted to divulge the true face of Nazi Germany and Hitler and Mein Kampf, and the world chose to ignore them, just like people want to speak up and to the true face of what's going on in Iran and who are the Ayatollahs and what they're driving about. And some people objected even when our Prime Minister came over to Congress to give the truth of what's happening over there. People don't want to. There is a naivety, mainly on the left wing in the world, who will not face facts, will not face truth, and they're the useful idiots of an ideological enemy.
Well, if your thesis is accurate, and that's the rhetorical if, since your thesis is accurate, how can there ever, for the sake of some of our new viewers, new listeners, how can there ever be peace between the Israelis in Israel and the other folks, the Palestinians and the various factions there, if there's an underlying Jew hatred and jihad as part of the doctrine of these folks? How could there ever be peace in Israel?
Look, it's a very good question, Tom, and I answer this way. It's a very important question as it applies to the book. Because, look, the people who spoke up against Hitler, like even Winston Churchill, he didn't speak up and want to expose the truth of Hitler and Nazi Germany and what he wrote in Mein Kampf because he wanted to go to war with them. He wanted to speak up because he was also believed in peace. But there are times when you cannot make peace with an evil enemy. It is impossible. Same applies with Iran. You can't cover up the truth of Iran, what they're all about. And what I'm doing here is the same with the Palestinians, and I appeal to people, okay, even if you believe in a two-state solution, and you believe in peace, and believe me, all Israelis believe in peace, not war, war, war all the time. First of all, you have to identify clearly the thing we're trying to make peace with. And we've been trying to make peace with the Palestinians for 40, 50 years, and it doesn't work. Then you have to look at why it doesn't work, and you look at the true identity of what the Palestinians they stand for, and you begin to realize with this sort of leadership, with this sort of indoctrination, you cannot make peace with these people.
Sobering words, very sad words, because again, since you are accurate in that, that's been our conclusion. And the folks that we live and play with here in the U.S. and elsewhere, very serious national security experts, they say it's impossible to have peace, only security. So now when Israel equips itself to be secure, whether it's building a fence or whether it has checkpoints or whatever to keep the people who want to kill them managed to some extent, there's world condemnation. It's a catch-22. But you guys over there, Barry, you somehow get through the day, you smile, you drink a little wine, you drink a little beer, you celebrate your festivals, you produce, you're an economic engine, you're a cultural engine, and you're tiny, tiny, tiny little group of people confounding the world in the midst of this sea of chaos. God bless you for what you do.
I cannot stand it.
Imam Abdullah can't stand it.
But I must say I agree with most everything Barry says. We cannot get along. Our hatred is too much.
Well, and like Barry says, it roots all the way back to the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. I mean, that's... And Hitler
goes back to Muhammad.
Yeah, well, and back to Muhammad, but I'm just saying there is a direct correlation to Nazism, the type of Nazism that's being, spoken about in the Middle East. It's the same thing. And how can you have peace with a Hitler type of mentality? You just can't have it.
There's nothing new under the sun. Barry, we got about 30 seconds with you. Share your thoughts for our audience, which is America and many places around the world.
Right. I want to tell you one other thing. There are contacts going on, going back to what you said about Syria, between Israel and the Syrian rebels, because this I can divulge to you off the record. A guy called Mendis Safadi, who serves as the chief of staff of a Likud member of the Knesset called Ayub Kara, who met with the Syrian opposition member in Bulgaria about 2 weeks ago, because the Syrian rebels who are opposing not only Assad, but trying to fight Islamic State, are now openly calling on Israel's help and closer relations with Israel to help them in their battle against the Syrian army and also against Hezbollah, Iran, and also Islamic State. That's part of the mishmash I told you about before. You may have heard that there were stray mortar shells that fell inside Israel. The battle is right on the border, and the Syrian rebels are now reaching out to Israel to ask for Israel's help in this fight.
Oy vey. I mean, who is who in this chess field, chess game battle? Unbelievable, but we know you guys there
Chinese
will
checkers.
figure out who the friends are and who your friends aren't, that's for sure. All right, Barry, thank you very, very much. Shabbat Shalom. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll catch up with you next week, okay?
Thank you, Tom.
All right, take care. Barry Shaw, everybody. Syria, one of the, I think Barry or Bill said that Syria was not a third world country, a very sophisticated country, had educational system. And Assad, in all his errors and horrendous behavior geopolitically, he did allow Christians to function and to worship there. And the Christians, now it's a different kind of worship than here in the United States, a little more contained, not as open and as aggressive, but that's Middle Eastern worship in Syria. If you're a Christian there, you're a believer in Jesus Christ, all of that. You've got a family going on, you've been there for 500 years.
But you still hate the Jews.
Yeah, well, some of the Christians do, but the real ones don't. But you can't be publicizing that anywhere, and you're simply not in a position to move your 200 people in your family to some other country and start over. So you learn to live and get along with all of this. But now, with the Assad regime falling, which was a horrendous regime tied into Tehran, then the Islamic State gaining ground, they're not going to protect Christians. They're going to kill Christians, as we know. And Israel's now trying to figure out, what do we do? Anybody pops a mortar over, they're going to get whacked. But what is the larger geopolitical strategy to manage a country that may completely collapse? This is a gigantic country with all kinds of weaponry. If Bashar Assad's weaponry, and some of it has, got in the hands of the Islamic State, they're going to be well equipped for the next 20 years to go do battle wherever they want to in the Levant and extend their satanic reach elsewhere. Tough stuff, folks. Tough stuff.
Well, what's so crazy is it's not one team battling another team. There are 5, 6, 7 teams battling it out.
Wait, hang on to that. It would be like playing American football and you have 2 teams, but no, you put 8 teams on the field and they're all playing in any direction they want.
Wearing different uniforms.
Yeah, and you got to figure out who am I rooting for, that guy's running the ball. The Islamic State just beheading somebody. Oh, I can't
It's
go with
kind
that.
of like, remember, kill the man with the ball when you're a kid? You don't have enough people for a football
like
game.
that.
Everyone's just tackling whoever has the ball.
Hey, look, times like this,
Never give up.
never give up. Never give up. And our experience with the leadership in that tiny nation of Israel, the intellectual leadership, the academic leadership, the military leadership, they're not superhuman, but they have so much experience dealing with these complexities and these enemies that they figure out a way to maintain their security. But the problem with that, when they maintain their security, it often requires a bellicose, a military response. That's where the world condemns them. Hey, Israel, don't worry about what the world does, okay? You're the apple of God's eye. Live as such. Move ahead and do the best you possibly can. Yep. All right, Mark, you got something? We're just about phasing out for this show.
No, I got nothing.
We got about a minute and 20 seconds, man.
No, I got nothing. It's just, it's...
You don't say I got nothing and then start telling me something.
I started thinking of something.
Okay, what do you got?
Well, I did not know that Saudi Arabia had gotten that bad as far as it's getting worse in Saudi Arabia too, which is no big surprise because they hate Jews also. But in Barry Shaw, when are we ever going to learn, that these people want to kill us and that's it, and that's their only object in life.
And imagine you're an Israeli leader and you get a call from the king. Hello, Mr. Netanyahu. This is the king of Saudi Arabia. Yes, how can I help you? Don't you want to kill us and hate us? Yes, we kill you and hate you, but we need your help right now.
Can you please go kill the filthy Shia first before we kill you?
Yes, we will not kill you today if you help us kill the Shia today.
Like the wimpy burger of Islam.
And Netanyahu has to go, it's the king again. Same stuff. He needs our help. He won't kill us today. What do we do? Unbelievable.
You can't let a Jew catch a connecting flight out of Saudi Arabia, but he can call up and ask for Israeli military support.
Or help.
Okay,
yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
On that happy note, we shall see you on Monday. Ladies and gentlemen, have a safe and productive weekend with your families. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.